North Carolina just isn't another southern state. It's a place where a colony vanished without a trace, where some people claimed independence before America even existed, where battles that were lost actually changed the direction of a war, where quiet wilderness holds stories that should be told today, and finally, where some county borders make you ask, why is it even like that? Today we're diving into the mystery, the strange rebellions, the cool geography, and often overlooked history of North Carolina's counties. Let's get into it. Let's get started with the most mysterious disappearance in American history, or at least early American history. Roanoke Island, a hopeful English colony placed right here in what is now Dare County, came here to rebuild a new world. Families, children's, homes, and then they vanished. Croatoan, or at least I think that's how you say it. Did they move? Were they attacked? Did they assimilate to native tribes? Or did something far stranger happen here? Even today, nobody knows for sure. So when you look at the lost county, what makes this mystery so enduring? What makes this mystery so lasting? What makes it so interesting? For me, it's the unknown. Heading over to Mecklenburg County, well, I hope that's how you say it. Just gonna put that out there. Let's talk about rebellion. This is home to Charlotte and one of the oldest stories of American independence. Locals here say that in 1775, before the Declaration of Independence existed, before July 4th even meant anything, they declared independence on their own. Whether it's truth or a little bit of myth, it still shapes the identity of this place today.
I'm Tom Hanchett. I'm a PhD historian in Charlotte, North Carolina. Came here in 1981 to work for the Historic Landmarks Commission. I've worked for a bunch of different organizations, but I'm now on my own, historysouth.org, and working with community groups, with Park and Rec, basically anybody that wants a little bit of history about Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte is the big city in North Carolina. It's in the middle of Mecklenburg County. So I want to talk for a minute about why Mecklenburg. And then I want to talk about something called the Mecklenburg Resolves, which was part of the Revolutionary era before the big Declaration of Independence. So Mecklenburg County, Mecklenburg Resolves. Mecklenburg County comes from Germany. Really? Yeah. Back when this area was being settled by European folks, 1768 is the first time it shows up in the colonial records. There's Native American trading paths here, and the folks who are coming from England, from Germany, from various parts of Europe begin to coalesce on a hilltop, and they get permission to sell town lots, which means laying out streets. And Trade and Tryon streets are our main street at the center of town. It helped, I think, to get that permission that they named their city after the wife of the king. Charlotte was the wife of King George III of England, who eventually we had the revolution against. But you know, if you wanted to catch the attention of the bureaucrats, honoring the queen was not a bad thing. The prize was becoming the courthouse village for the whole county, which at a time when there was very little trade going on, mostly it would be on court days at that courthouse in the center of the county. And so folks named themselves Charlotte, and then they named the county after where Charlotte was from. And she was not English. Yeah. She was an immigrant. As today, Charlotte is 15 to 20% immigrants, apropos. She was from Germany. Back in the day, the royals tended to marry across country boundaries. And so if you, in fact, if you know geography up and down the eastern seaboard, there's a bunch of Charlottes. Other people were working this angle. Charlottesville in Virginia, where the University of Virginia is. Mecklenburg, there's a bunch of Mecklenburgs. There's a Mecklenburg County in southern Virginia. I grew up in upstate New York, little towns. There was a little town called Mecklenburg, which I figured, somebody named Mecklin had founded a little burg there. Now I know that it was coming out of that German history around King George and Queen Charlotte.
But I want to dive in even further now to the Mecklenburg Declaration is what I had researched it as, but you have the more correct term as the Mecklenburg Resolve. So paint the picture for us and really tell us, what will really happen. Like, what are we really looking at?
Well, Charlotte has its own little footnote to history, which is often remembered in North Carolina as something called the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, which supposedly happened on May 20th, 1775. It didn't, but I think the people who remembered it a little bit wrong should get kudos. What the deal is that after Lexington and Concord and Paul Revere and all that stuff in New England, it was really clear to some people on the ground that being English was not where the future was. People wanted to make this colonial world separate from England. And so there's a number of communities in 1775, early 1776, who declare that they are not part of England. They are not under England's domination. They are free and independent. And Charlotte was one of the very first. And in May of 1775, folks got together and they wrote a document that declared that they were no longer English. They were their own entity, that they were a new nation here, part of a new nation in what we now think of as colonial America. So May 1775. What was the date and what did they write? The date, well, history never seems like history when you're making history. You're always busy. You're getting the kids off to school in the morning and you're bringing in the crops and you're dealing with all, you're playing Wordle. Like, I don't know if you played Wordle back then, but checking Facebook and all, there's just stuff to do. And it's all up in the air anyway. Is this going to work? Who knows? And so the notion of this piece of paper, 1775, kind of faded from memory. And it was many years later, about 1819, they were coming up, I guess, on the 40th anniversary of the end of the Revolution. And folks in Mecklenburg County said, Grandpa, they asked the old guys, didn't you sign some kind of thing, back in the day that as this all was getting underway? And they tried to remember. And to their credit, they came close. It must have been in the spring. If you're a farmer, you know when the planting happens and all of that sort of stuff. And so it was in May. Now you can't check online. There's very little written down stuff about anything at this point. And the piece of paper that they signed had burned in a house fire in 1800.
Typical.
And so maybe it was, and there was some debate, but they settled on May the 20th. And the guys who had been part of that tried to write out what they remembered. I don't think they did a particularly good job at that. They tended to remember the July 4th Declaration of Independence and got them all mixed up. But golly, May 20th, 1775. Well, the way we know that was close but no cigar was that years later, folks found in the big newspaper of this area, the Charleston newspaper, the Mecklenburg Resolves of May 31st, 1775. And you can find them online. If you are part of newspapers.com or Ancestry, just Google Mecklenburg Resolves and you will turn up, among other things, the South Carolina Gazette and Country Journal, June 13th, 1775. Mecklenburg County hereby resolves that all laws and commissions confirmed by and derived from the authority of the king or parliament are annulled and vacated. And the former civil constitution of these colonies for the present is wholly suspended. That sounds like a Declaration of Independence. It doesn't use the word declaration. It doesn't use the word independence, but it says that the old laws are all null and void. And it gets specific. All commissions, civil and military, all of the military officers, the clerk of court, people like that, all of those commissions are null and void. and the constitution of each particular colony is wholly suspended. So it ain't just them declaring their independence. They're talking about this change across the whole colonial world. The provincial Congress of each province, under the direction of the Great Continental Congress, is invested with all legislative and executive powers, and no other legislative or executive power can exist at this time in any of the colonies. So there it is, May 31st, 1775, shows up in the newspapers, shows up in the colonial records. The May 20th Declaration doesn't show up anywhere. It's not in the newspapers. It's not in the records of the colonial governor. And it's a misremembering. It's honest. They weren't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But now we know, May 31st, Charlotte got out front on this notion that they were going to control their own destiny. And that's a precursor to Charlotte many years later becoming this big city that is one of the dominant cities today in the southern United States.
So I know, I'll edit this piece out because they're doing construction on my other side of the house, of course, today. But crazy. I love that you also talked about how this inspires other small towns to now work in what's in front of you, work in your neighborhood, and then make big change. Like, that was a big notion that you brought up in our previous meeting. And I like how us studying this is now going to motivate others, or even shed light on the fact that you can now make a big difference by working in your community, which is a very good point that you had brought up previously.
I'm quibbling about whether it's May 20th or May 31st, but the bottom line is that people did not wait for Thomas Jefferson and the big important people in Philadelphia to write out their Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. People at the grassroots wanted change. And that is a powerful lesson about how change happens. It is not because some important person in a big city goes, ping, it's going to change. It happens because people at the grassroots are energized. They're willing to risk their lives, their liberty. They're willing to get out in front when the big important government people don't want you doing that. Yeah. And that is the way change happens. It doesn't happen from above. It happens from people coming together to change the world.
Thank you for clearing that up for my audience here at Press Release. And if you guys are more interested in more about that North Carolina history, be sure to go to historysouth.org and check out Mr. Henson's work over there. He is very hardworking and very known. He's actually Charlatan of the Year. Charlatan? Was that the word? Charlatan? Is that the word?
Charlatan, yeah.
Charlatan, I did it again. Charlatan of the Year previously. So very well known in that community historically for the work that he's doing. So thank you.
Now over in Hyde County, it's known as quiet yet powerful. Now this place isn't crowded highways, lights, big city energy, none of that. It's more like marshlands, untapped waterways, and really nature in its fullest. These barrier islands and this natural landscape really give this place a sense of isolation. And in this isolation, people learn to really live with nature and alongside it rather than combating against it. And in my opinion, these people are often the most resilient. In hearing what people had to say about living in this county, it reminds me that maybe history doesn't always have to come from the biggest places. Like the biggest, hugest cities don't necessarily have to have the grandest history. It could come from small places like this, places that have narratives, events, adaptive, or even artifacts, or just experiences rather, that can really add to the depth of our understanding of ourselves as mankind, which is history or herstory. Now let's get a little bit intense with Guilford County. Guilford? I need to go to these places more, and as this channel grows, you'll definitely see me go so I can actually hear how it's said. So if you know how it's said and you're from North Carolina, I'm sorry. Just comment below phonetically or nicely how to say the county. But let's talk about this place and why it's really important. Now, 1776 and the whole, American Revolution may be famous, but this county and the courthouse battle that takes place in it pretty much changed the lay of the land. Now, they won, but they still lost a lot, ultimately changing the course of how they planned and fought future battles. Standing here, you don't just see a battlefield, right? You see sacrifice. You see little against large. You see unequipped against equipped. North Carolina is more than just counties on a map and just these little experiences here and there. It's the true nature of the American spirit. Hope you guys really liked this video, and let's get pressed in the next one. Follow for more. Peace. A map. I'm a map guy. Over the next few weeks, months, years, I'll be covering counties, provinces, lakes, maps, borders. Did I say maps again? But yeah, as you can tell, I love it. Press is the name of the game. Kip Jackson is my name. And yeah, peace. Follow for more if I didn't say that. Did I say that? Follow for more.